He didn't bark. He didn't whine. He didn't even get up when people walked by. He just waited. Day after day. In the far corner of a cold, concrete kennel, a German shepherd sat completely still. Motionless. Like he wasn't really there. Other dogs jumped at the bars. They wagged their tails. They begged for attention. For a chance. For a home. But not him. He had stopped hoping. Stopped trying. Because every time the door opened, every time the footsteps echoed through the shelter, they passed him by. Every single time. He wasn't the cutest. He wasn't the youngest. He didn't smile or play or pull heartstrings. He just stared. Quiet eyes. Empty eyes. Like someone who had been forgotten long before he was left behind. Shelter staff called him the ghost. The dog no one saw. The one people skipped without even realizing it. But one day, someone stopped. A woman. Not a rescuer. Not a volunteer. Just a stranger. And what she did next? No one saw it coming. Not the staff. Not the other dogs. Not even him. And it would change everything. To understand why he was so broken, you have to know what happened before he ended up behind those bars. Before the shelter. Before the silence. Before the concrete walls and chain-link doors. He had a life. Not a good one. Not the kind you picture when you think of a happy dog bounding through grass. This German shepherd had lived in a backyard, chained. Year-round. No walks. No toys. No name anyone ever used. The neighbors said he was just there. Like part of the fence. Sometimes they'd hear him cry when the nights got cold. But no one did anything. Not until animal control showed up. Someone finally made the call. Too late, maybe. Because by the time they took him in, his ribs showed through his fur. His tail had stopped wagging. And his eyes? They looked like they didn't belong in a dog. Empty. Wounded. Like he'd already given up. The shelter gave him food. Clean water. A new name he didn't respond to. But love? He didn't know what that word meant. He'd flinch at a raised hand. Cower at loud voices. And he never barked. As if sound itself had betrayed him long ago. Some dogs come into shelters with hope in their hearts. Not him. He didn't want affection. He didn't want treats. He just wanted to be left alone. Because trusting had cost him too much in the past. And while other dogs moved on, got adopted, got second chances, he sat there. Day after day. Fading into the background. Waiting for someone who might never come. Time moves differently in a shelter. For the humans, it's shift changes and feeding schedules. For the dogs, it's waiting. And for him, it was endless silence. Week after week, people came through those doors. Families, couples, students looking for a companion. They walked the aisles with hopeful eyes, pausing to greet the playful ones, laughing at wagging tails and big brown eyes. But when they reached his kennel, they barely slowed down. Some glanced. Some didn't. He never stood up. Never barked to get their attention. It was almost like he'd made peace with the fact that no one was coming for him. The volunteers stopped trying too hard. Not because they didn't care, but because they thought he didn't want it. They said he was shut down. Said he was too far gone. Even whispered that maybe he didn't want to live anymore. He wasn't aggressive. He wasn't dangerous. He was just invisible. Some days, he didn't even lift his head when food came. Other days, he sat and stared at the wall for hours. His fur started to dull. His eyes lost the last bit of spark. He would lie there in that same corner. Day after day. Like he was trying to disappear. They moved his kennel to the quieter end of the building. Said maybe the noise was too much for him. But really, they were just running out of ideas. He became the dog with the sad eyes. The one new volunteers were warned about. The one people said, he's sweet, but probably not adoptable. No one blamed him. But no one fought for him either. Until one ordinary afternoon, when someone walked in. And for the first time in a long time, he looked up. She hadn't come for him. She didn't even know he existed. Her plan that day was simple. Visit the shelter. maybe foster. Maybe fall in love with a puppy like most people do. But as she walked through the rows of kennels, something tugged at her. Not a bark. Not a wagging tail. A silence. She stopped. Turned. There he was. Sitting exactly where he'd always been. Still. Watching her. Not with hope. Not with fear. Just observing. Like he was used to being looked at, but never truly seen. And for reasons she couldn't explain. She sat down on the floor, right outside his kennel. Cross-legged. Quiet. No phone. No photos. Just presence. He didn't move. Didn't flinch. But his eyes locked onto hers. And in that instant, she felt something. Something heavy. Something wordless. She whispered, "Hey, buddy." And though he didn't respond, she stayed. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. She wasn't in a rush. And neither was he. The staff noticed. One of them came over and said gently, "He's been here a long time. Don't take it personally. He doesn't really connect with people." She just nodded. But she didn't leave. Because there was something in his eyes. A kind of sadness that mirrored her own. A pain she couldn't explain, but understood. And when she finally stood to go, he didn't move. But his head tilted. Just slightly. A gesture so small. Anyone else would have missed it. But she didn't. Because that tiny tilt said everything. Don't go. She went home that night, but she couldn't stop thinking about him. And the next day, she came back. Not to adopt him. Not yet. But to show him that someone finally stayed. The next day, she came back. Same time. Same quiet corner. And there he was. Still curled in that same position. Still silent. Still watching. This time, she brought nothing but herself. No leash. No toys. No expectations. She just sat again, just outside the kennel door. Cross-legged. Still. Like before. No words. No pressure. Minutes passed. And then, something shifted. A flicker. His ears perked, just barely. He lifted his head. Not all the way. But enough. Their eyes met again. And this time, something was different. He didn't look away. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, he leaned forward. Just a little. Like he was asking himself, is it safe to hope? And then, he stood. Unsteady. Hesitant. But he stood. His paws moved slowly toward the bars. Step by step. Not rushed. Not sure. And then, he did something no one had seen him do in a very long time. He sat down. Right in front of her. Close. So close she could hear him breathing. She didn't reach out. Didn't try to pet him. She just whispered, "Hi again." He blinked. And in that blink was a lifetime of pain. And a sliver of trust. Shelter staff nearby froze. They were watching from a distance. One of them whispered, "I've never seen him do that before." She didn't smile. She didn't cheer. She just sat there. Heart pounding. Knowing something had changed. Not everything. Not yet. But something. That small step, those few quiet moments, were all she needed to know. He was still in there. And now, she wasn't going to leave him behind. She came back for the third time, papers in hand. "I want to adopt him," she told the front desk. The staff looked at her like she hadn't heard the warnings. Like maybe she didn't understand what she was signing up for. They explained everything again. "He's a long-term case. He might never be social. He doesn't know how to live in a home. He might never love you back." She nodded. "I know. He's not like the others," they said gently. "Most people want dogs that are ready. Friendly. Easy." "I don't need him to be easy," she replied. "I just need him to be him." They paused. And for the first time in months, someone filled out an adoption form with his name on it. As she walked back to the kennel with the leash, the staff held their breath. Would he panic? Would he resist? But he didn't. He stood up the moment she appeared. Didn't bolt. Didn't bark. He simply walked to the door and waited. As if he knew. As if something inside him whispered, "This is your person." They walked out together. Slowly, carefully. Like two souls testing the edges of a new world. A few people stared. Others whispered. She's brave. She's going to have her hands full. Why him? But she didn't care. Because where they saw a lost cause, she saw a beginning. Where they saw broken, she saw unfinished. And as he stepped into her car for the first time, curled up in the back seat, not out of comfort, but surrender, she smiled through tears. He was going home. Finally. But rescue doesn't end at adoption. That's where the real story begins. Because love, real love, it takes time. The first night was quiet. No barking. No pacing. Just silence. He found the farthest corner of the house. Away from the windows. Away from her. And curled up into a ball so small. It barely looked like a dog was there. She didn't force him to come out. She didn't coax with treats or toys. She just sat on the floor, again. Near enough to be seen. Far enough to be safe. This was their new language now. Patience. Respect. Stillness. The days that followed weren't magical. He didn't suddenly become playful. He didn't wag his tail when she came home. He didn't trust her. Not yet. But he watched her. And that mattered. He watched her fill his bowl. He watched her leave the door open instead of shutting him in. He watched her cry quietly when he wouldn't come closer. And he watched her smile anyway. Because she never stopped showing up. Every morning, she sat with her coffee on the floor near him. Every evening, she whispered, "Good night, buddy," whether he came close or not. Then one day, he took a step. Not a leap. Just a step. Toward her. And then another. It was a slow dance. One built on silence, space, and the softest kind of bravery. She learned to celebrate the smallest victories. The day he ate while she was still in the room. The first time he let her touch his paw. The night he finally fell asleep just a few feet from her instead of across the room. Each moment. Tiny. Fragile. Beautiful. Love didn't come all at once. It came in pieces. In glances. In breaths. And then, after weeks of waiting, healing, and hoping. One morning, he did something she never expected. Something she would remember for the rest of her life. It was a quiet morning. The kind where nothing feels special. Until it suddenly is. She was sitting on the living room floor again. Legs crossed. Mug in hand. Reading like she always did. He was nearby. Still in his corner. Still distant. But not afraid anymore. And then, he moved. Not cautiously. Not slowly. He stood up, stretched his long legs. And walked directly to her. No hesitation. No second guessing. She looked up, eyes wide, breath caught. As he gently rested his head on her lap. It was the first time. No commands. No encouragement. Just him, choosing her. The moment was so simple. But to her, it felt like a lifetime's worth of trust. Finally breaking through the surface. She didn't speak. Didn't move. Didn't dare breathe too loud. Tears welled in her eyes as she slowly, gently laid her hand on his head. And for the first time, he didn't flinch. He leaned into her. Not because he had to. Not because he was trained to. But because he wanted to. That was the moment everything changed. He had let her in. Not just into his space. But into his heart. That wall he had built brick by brick. Over years of pain and neglect. It cracked. And love poured through. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. Like healing often is. From that moment on, their story wasn't just about rescue. It was about becoming whole, together. And what came next was more than anyone could have imagined.